Alicia and I started on Two Wings at the invitation of Carnegie Hall, and they asked us to focus on the Great Migration and what that sounds like.
The Great Migration is the mass movement of African Americans from the rural South to urban centers, both southern initially and then northern.
We realized that we were also charting that migration pattern, and also really not only charting the pattern of millions of African Americans leaving a specifically violent and terror-filled South in hopes of finding a place where they could move their families and then replant themselves into healthier soil.
Before the Great Migration, African Americans were a primarily rural population.
And an agricultural people, and a skilled laboring class. In rural America, we are making, not just building the buildings, but making the bricks. And many, many of us have roots in a rural knowledge of this land, and it's urban and industrial.
After the Great Migration, urban became a euphemism for Black because of the Great Migration. So we hear urban radio, and we know that means Black music. Things like baseball and basketball change because of the Great Migration. So the migrants change, but they change the cities and they change America.
The city beckoned. It recognized their difference as a source of originality. You should come, the city told them. You should be here. You belong. You are invited. You are welcome. Stay a while. You are smart enough, beautiful enough, hip enough, tough enough, enterprising enough. You are mine. And as with every heart that races at the speed of urban streets, every eye struck with awe at the grand facade of an elegant apartment building or the sheer audacity of a skyscraper, every mouth that smiled at a brief encounter, an overheard conversation, or the constant chatter, they fell in love with the city. The city beckoned, and yes, they came again and again and again.
Two Wings has taught me that I barely knew anything about the migration. It teaches me more about my family that I didn't know, a lot about Alicia's family, and about the families of the people who came into the project too.
For me, it was the first time I, with a great deal of consideration, traced back through the reasons why my family, from my grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, made these moves.
And so the audience that watches and feels not only the stories of their ancestors, but theirs in particular, and how it lines up with all of these other journeys that their person sitting next to them has taken as well. What does that feel like, to leave? I think African American people, it's an important moment because it's one of our first movements of freedom outside of bondage, is to then, I'm gonna take this opportunity to walk away. And that we get to Carnegie Hall to talk about the people who walked away and the families that stayed. It becomes a really important and special moment that I think our audience realizes too.
There's a lot about what was communicated in Two Wings that I would say most Americans don't know about. If you're Black and you're here on the shoulders of some very strong people, because a lot of humans did not make it. And the fact that I'm sitting here means that I'm standing on the shoulders of some very strong people.